Life for All presents Daily Food Series, Galatians, the Only Gospel, the Gospel of Christ. Title of Book 2, The Hearing of Faith, by Pedro. Week 3, The Works of the Law, or the Hearing of Faith. Thursday, God freed us from the law. Read with prayer. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. In the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. The Galatians received the faith in a pure way through Paul's preaching. However, they were unfortunately contaminated by the preaching of the Judaizers. Thus, having been deceived, they began to follow the doctrines and ordinances based on the law of Moses, with the aim of achieving greater blessing through the efforts of the flesh. Galatians chapter 3, verses 3 and 4. Every man has the sinful nature in his flesh, and the law highlights the sin without resolving it. Romans chapter 7, verse 5. Even if man keeps the law, he remains in the flesh under the bondage of sin, because the law is in the sphere of the flesh. Therefore, which do we prefer? To remain in the sphere of the flesh, or to be in the sphere of faith, in which the Spirit works miracles and does God's will? In the flesh are our sinful nature and the origin of sinful lust. If we continue to live in this sphere, these passions remain active, trying in every way to lead us to sin. However, by the hearing of faith, our old man is crucified, and we receive the Spirit, who leads us and has the freedom to carry out God's work in us and through us. God's law is in the sphere of the Spirit, but we are in the sphere of the flesh, which is our old man enslaved by sin. Romans chapter 7, verse 14. If we insist on living by the law of Moses, we will never leave the sphere of the flesh, nor be freed from the slavery of sin. Romans chapter 7, verses 21 through 23. The only way for man to be freed from the slavery of sin is to die to his old man. At the beginning of the 7th chapter of Romans, we read that as long as a woman's husband is still alive, she is bound to him and prevented from uniting with another. Romans chapter 7, verses 1 through 3. In our spiritual reality, that husband is the old man. Until he dies, we will not be freed from sin and the law. The solution God has given us is in the cross. When Christ died for us, through faith, we died together with him, just like our old man. Thus, we are free, like the woman whose husband died, to marry another. Today, we are married to Christ, and it is he who lives in us. Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. Being raised with Christ through faith is living in newness of life. Romans chapter 6, verse 4. When we practice the hearing of faith by immersing ourselves in the Word and inculcating it in us, we are in the sphere of the Spirit, where our old man has already died with Christ, and we live in his resurrection, in newness of life, because he lives in us. Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. All of us, at the beginning of our Christian journey, were simpler and more humble. Yet over time, as we gain knowledge, experience, and ability, we begin to run the risk of losing the simplicity of the beginning. Before, we depended only on the Spirit, and then we began to depend on ourselves. I myself am always vigilant about this, so as not to fall back into relying on my ability and past experiences instead of relying on the Spirit. This is a risk we all run. Moreover, when we fall into this situation, we lose the vigor and power of the Spirit. That is why we always need to maintain our simplicity. Living in the sphere of the law is the same as living by our ability, and this demonstrates that we trust in the flesh and want to perfect it. Galatians chapter 3, verse 3. However, this is not the way. We must not lose our simplicity and fall into the error of trying to serve the Lord through our own effort or ability, acquired over the course of the Christian life. Finally, Paul also points out to the Galatians that by abandoning the hearing of faith to return to the practice of the law, they would make vain all the sufferings that, together with the apostles, they endured for the faith of the gospel. Galatians chapter 3, verse 4, and Acts chapter 13, verse 13 through chapter 14, verse 22.